Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. Tommy Grisafi as well as Brian Splitt joining us. Brian, volatility, the name of the game again. We saw a few down days to begin the week. Thursday, we saw prices increase. But what really pressured prices to start the week?
Well, Tyne, you've got the planting pace that has increased very rapidly, and we're getting close, not quite to where we would be on a normal year. The emergence needs to catch up as well, but it will. So that's one element. The other element we've seen is that you've got a rather benign weather forecast looking out the next 2 weeks, so we don't have hot and dry. And I think that's helped bring some of the money out of the market. And then you also have the geopolitical element, which is the idea that we will see more grain exported out of the Black Sea region. Whether that or not that comes to fruition, it's hard to say. You got a lot of obstacles to get there. Namely getting mines out of the ports and getting boat captains to be able to get insured to get their boat there to load the product. But it does seem like we've got Turkey, which is saying publicly that they're willing to help facilitate all this. So it adds another dynamic to that brings it a little closer to reality. And then I think you look at why soybeans are holding in. And when you look at where Russia is gaining ground and taking control, it's in the eastern regions where we've got the sunflower production. Sunflower oil leads to bean oil, leads to soybeans. And with the oncoming demand from biodiesel, that seems to be helping this soybean market maintain support while we're seeing liquidation in corn and in wheat.
Well, as we look further ahead and really what could be on the horizon today, though, it's still a nightmare, Tommy, for farmers up in that northern corn belt. You're in North Dakota, I know, this week, boots on the ground, talking to farmers. Paint the picture there for us as they run out of time to even plant soybeans. What are you seeing, and how many prevent plant acres could we see in that area this year, Tommy?
I think the number could be surprising, especially if we catch another rain here in a few days. Driving around earlier this morning, no tractors, no planters. Maybe people get going here this afternoon, this weekend. If we catch another rain, it's going to really cause problems, and people are stressed out as it is. So here you have a perfect situation where you could be massively profitable if you're in the bushel business, and you're seeing, put North Dakota down. You could see 800 to a million acres, 800,000 a million acres PP, South Dakota 300, parts Minnesota a couple hundred, maybe 1.5 million acres of PP, which if you look at history tying is normal. To America's a big place. It doesn't always go perfect. But then you move down south to what's happening in Texas. I just looked down at my phone before you hit record. Cotton was up 400. So we got stuff playing. All the things Brian mentioned, he did a great recap on that. And then you take the weather in the south, the weather in the north. But the one thing people have been calling and telling me to go on TV, don't forget the people in Canada. They are wet up there, wet, wet, wet. They went from a drought to wet. The area in Canada is about 3 times, take the state of North Dakota, add 3 of those. That's how big they farm up there. And those products Brian talked about, the sunflower oil, they grow a lot of canola up there, a lot of wheat, especially the spring wheat, and other specialty crops that we're out of supplies here. We are flat out of grain. We have a positive basis in North Dakota, which used to be the armpit of the world. It is now a hot cash market. There's still water in the fields. This story's not over yet, Tyne.
Yeah, so Brian, as Tommy said, maybe 1.5 million acres there. Depends on where the rains hit this weekend. That's typical. But in a year like this, where supplies are so critical, question marks about what's going on in the world, can we afford to lose 1.5 million acres?
Well, you may lose that 1.5 million. I tend to think that you could see somewhere between 500,000 to 600,000 acres of corn added in the I states to help make up for some of that prevent plant there, just based on the rally that we saw in corn versus soybeans leading into the planting time frame. But generally, in a big picture sense, the ending stocks for corn are tight. We know when the USDA dropped yield to 177 from the 181 that they were using in the outlook for them, that really just showed us that with these acres, you could have, again, a retest of previous record yields, and it really doesn't improve the balance sheet all that much. So, one of the things that we'll be looking at moving forward is, does the getting back to somewhat normal pace for corn, does that prompt the USDA to feel like they could potentially put the yield back up closer to their trend model? And does that provide a little bit of cushion on the balance sheet here? But we have to really grow the crop. A lot of the crops can be pollinating in a short period of time, a little bit later than normal, deeper into July. So that's got to be something where, again, it's a weather market here that we have to pay very close attention to.
Tommy, real quick, if we do see a shift in acres up there in that North Dakota area, South Dakota, you're talking to those farmers, which crop loses out on some of those acres and where do you think we gain?
Corn would obviously lose. You'd see a pickup in sunflowers, which the world could use those. You'd see obvious pickup in soybeans. And one thing I want to add to Brian's point, as we're all shifting around, are we going to lose 1 million acres? Are we going to pick up? How's demand going to be? We got to remember, the farmer will sell grain when they need money. And right now, many farmers don't need the money. So we could produce a big crop and it'll still be in tight hands, something that hasn't happened in years, where the American farmer is sitting there with cash and says, come get it, but at my price, not yours.
Yeah, so we're going to look more forward at forward contracting. What could your game plan be, as well as, dig into some of these feed costs and livestock producers. What do you need to be thinking about? We're going to do that this weekend later on U.S. Farm Report.